YouTube channel for current affairs classes. I, Nishant Sir, welcome you on this platform, and let's start our class of current affairs. Right to vote versus freedom of voting. Supreme Court examined the constitutionality of uncontested election under the RPA Act of 1951. Now, the Supreme, why this is in news? Because the Supreme Court of India is examining a petition challenged on the constitutionality of Section 53, Clause 2. Okay. So Section 53, Clause 2 of the Representation of People's Act 1951, which allows a candidate to be declared as electoral unopposed. Okay, what is electoral unopposed? Which the number of candidates equal the number of seats, right? This case has gained prominence as it coincides because with ongoing elections in Bihar General Assembly, bring attention to a deeper question. That what is the question in that? Does the automatic declaration of a candidate as electoral opposed or elected opposed violate the voters' fundamental rights under Article 19, Clause 1, subsection A? Because the petitioner argue that votes are denied the option of nota. There's none of the above. Nota. So in uncontested elections, the restricting their ability to express dissent. Okay. So now let's firstly connect this topic with the UPSC. So first, this is whole matter. Now, repeat. So Representation Act, People's Act 1971 governs the conduct of elections of Parliament and State Assembly. Okay? It ensures free and fair elections, defining the electoral offences, qualification and disqualification, and procedure. Okay. What is Section 53, Clause 2? Section 53, Clause 2 applies when the number of validly nominated candidate equal the number of available seat. In such case, the returning officer shall declare all such candidate to be duly to fill those seats, and in that they cover Form 21 and Form 21B. For Form 21, this is for general elections, and for Form 22, this is for vacancies, casual vacancies. Okay, so what was the implication on that? No actual voting or polling take place, hence the nota option is unavailable. So this is the main argument of this question, and it came in front of Supreme Court. So now let's discuss the key legal distinctions between the right to vote versus freedom of voting, because this is the main context about this. Right to vote and right to freedom of voting. In that, the nature, first of all, right to vote. What is right to vote? It is a statutory right. Let me. Now, right to vote. What is nature? Let me write over here. Nature. दिख रहा है ना? Statutory right. Statutory right under section 62. 62 of Representations of People Act 1951. Okay. And what about the freedom of voting? It is under the fundamental right of 19 clause 1 clause A. So everyone understood about this thing, the nature of let connect this nature with the meaning of these things. What is entitlement to participate in elections? What is the meaning? Okay, so what is entitled to participate in electoral voting or elections? Elections. Okay. Now, the second, what is about the freedom of voting? In this expression of political preferences, what is the meaning in that? Expression of political preferences. The expression of political preferences. Let us connect with the examples like Jyoti Basu versus Devi Ghosh, Ghoshal. Devi Ghoshal, 1982. Voting is a statutory right. In that case, let's connect with Jyoti Basu. Basu versus there. Ghoshal, 1982. In this case, statutory right. So voting is statutory right. Now on freedom of voting, there is a case which we all know about PUCL versus Union of State. यूनियन ऑफ इंडिया 2003 in that voting is an act of expression. Okay, voting is an act of expression when we exercise this during when we exercise these things during the conduct of poll, during the conduct of poll. During the conduct of poll. And second part, only when a poll occur or nota or choice among candidates, like this is whole about what is this? The freedom of voting arise only when there is a electional or election process involving actual polling. In consistent election or no polling, this freedom does not cooperate. Okay? समझ में आया? This is the main scenario regarding this. Now, the election what are the constitutional and judicial dimensions in that, in this topic, which connects directly to our UPSC CAC. This is why legalized institution. In this deck, right to vote, a statutory right granted under Section 62 of the Representation Act of 1951, allowing citizens to participate in elections. Freedom of voting, a fundamental rights under Article 19, Clause 1, Clause A, expressing an individual preference through their votes. A casting of a vote is a favor of one or the other candidate in tantamount to expression of opinion and preferences, making the accomplishment of freedom of expressions. The affidavit cites from PCUCL versus Union of India case, as we already discussed about this. Okay. Hence, the possibility to exercise freedom through notice absent in freedom of voting in section 53 second of what a section applies when the number of candidates equals the number of seats to be filled is an assembly or Lok Sabha election. Such an returning officer declares all candidates elected unopposed. Form used, Form 21, general election, Form 20. I already explained this whole scenario to you. So this is petitioner's document, not valid for UPSC. Center's right to vote versus freedom to write, freedom of voting, judicial references. You can connect it or write it in your mains answer writing, and PLUTUS IAS also provide the main answer writing under the Sankalp Sarathi mentorship program. So if anyone want to join Sankalp Sarathi program, please visit PLUTUS IAS office, which is in Apsara Arcade near Karol Bagh metro station. Okay. This is Elections Commission positions regarding this case. Where election commission stand on these things. That connects the constitutional validity in this. There is a significance. Constitutional or judicial dimension in that. Firstly, the key article involvement is Article 19. Article 19, 1 clause A is freedom of speech and expression. Let us connect it first of all. Article 19, Clause 1, Clause a fundamental right. Okay. So first involvement of this key article is 19 clause, which is we everyone know about the freedom of speech and expression. And next, the connecting article with that is Article 324. 324. What is 324? It is superintendent's directions or control of election by the election commission. See? Okay, superintendent's direction and control of election. All the process conducted by election commission. ECI is directly involved in these things because it is the duty of ECI to direction the elections, all the date, qualification, disqualification, all done by the elections commission. And third article, which directly connected to this, is 326. What is that? It is adult suffrages right to vote. Article 326, right to vote. Okay. Now the landmark cases which are directly connected, which we already discussed, is UCL versus Union of India 2003. In that, recognition that the freedom of voting is a part of freedom of expression is the main concept in that. Key articles. Now cases. UCL versus Union of India 2003. In this case, recognized that this case recognized what the freedom of voting is also part of freedom of expression. Directly linkage of this, right? समझ में? Second case, Kuldeep Nair versus Union of India in 2006. Okay, let me write first. Next. Okay, so Kuldeep Nair versus Union of India case 2006 upheld that voting rights are statutory, but voting secrecy is fundamental. What voting right is statutory, but voting secrecy is fundamental. समझ में आया इस चीज का है ना? Now, third case, which is in 2002, Union of India versus Association of Democratic Reforms. Okay? ADR. You also can say ADR. So in that case, expanded the scope of right to know about candidates. Okay? Right to know about candidates. These all cases are very important for your mains answer writing, as well as it's also UPSC asked in prelims also regarding this all whole articles about the statutory laws and something. Okay. And the fourth one, which is very important, in 2008, there is Subramaniam Swamy versus Elections Commission 2008. In that, reaffirmed the relation between the democracy and the information and electoral rights. Right? So, ये भी लिख लीजिए एक सुब्रमण्यम स्वामी वर्सेस इलेक्शन कमीशन 2008. Okay, so democratic and policy implications. What are the democratic and policy implications in that? Acha, take a screenshot of this thing. Okay. Then, actually, so next, the democratic and policy implication in this scenario. What are the democratic and policy implications? First is democratic legitimacy. What is democratic legitimacy? ये कर लेते हैं. First point, in that democratic automatic elections without a poll may appear undemocratic to citizens. That is democratic legitimacy. What's supposed to say? We see in section 53, clause 2, right? So this is next is freedom of expression. Freedom of expression is like denying nota limits symbolic protest and choice. Like mm, we can say in section 53 clause 2, uh, denying of nota, it's limits the symbolic protest and choice of your right. है ना? So this is very undemocratic. Right? Third one is administrative efficiency versus vote of rights, like section 53 clause balance logistical, participatory, and democratic ideas. Right? Next one is rarity argument. Rarity argument through a rare, even a few uncontested seats can set constitutional precedent. है ना? So, yes. What is the need to reform in that? A re-examination of law may strengthen electoral legitimacy. Okay, this is the whole topic where we see whole connections. Like now, how we connect this topic with UPSC CSC directly. So, for prelims or for mains, what are the involvement? Like first of all, is Representation of a People's Act 1951, which is direct act involved in that. The next is Section 53, right? Let me write over here. RPA 1951 prelims. Section 53, clause 2, important sections. Issues, denial nota, and freedom of expression is in uncontested elections. This is the main issue, which is can we, UPSC can ask regarding this also. Huh? Now, what are the article linkages in that? 19 clause 324, 326. समझ में आया? Types, case laws, Case laws, we write all the cases ना. Case law जैसे UPCL versus Union of India 2003. Now another thing is institutional involvement. What are the institutions involved in this thing? First is Supreme Court, because the case is going on the Supreme Court, right? Now, the second thing is Election Commission. किसके बारे में बात हो रही है? इलेक्शन कमीशन, तो वो भी इन्वॉल्व होंगे. Third is Vidhi centers or ADRs, right? Vidhi center, ADRs. This all are involvement. All the institutions which are involved in this test is Supreme Court, Election Commission, Vidhi centers, and the next thing is ADR. Now the reform angles for the mains perspective or like that, it is electoral reforms, voter awareness, legislative clarity. So these all are connected directly in your UPSC CSE. Now let's connect. First of all, we wrote this, the prelims relevance of this Representation Act of Representation of a People's Act 1951. In that, the key static area connected directly in the representation is section, first of all, section 53. Okay. Declaration of unopposed candidate. This is the direct context. Right to vote, statutory right. This question I asked previously in UPSC prelims also. Right to vote, statutory right under section 62 of RPA 1951. Another thing is nota, none of the above. So introduced in 2013 PUCL case. Okay. Another thing is election commission's power 324. So in that 324, conduct of elections, superintending directional or declaration of result, all this comes under the power of elections commission. Another is fundamental rights. We have read judicial landmarks cases PUCL वाला अभी जो ये लिखना है हमने. So this all are related directly in your prelims, democracy and electoral reforms. In the concept-based questions of prelims is right to vote, a fundamental right or not. The act of vote is an expression freedom under 19(1)(a). ऐसा करके पूछ सकते हो आपसे. मेंस का लिंकेज कहाँ से मिलेगा इसमें? Let's write about means in that directly GS2. ठीक है. अब in GS2 there is polity governance and constitutional. So in that polity governance, the real relevant syllabus area is what? Structural, organization, and functionals of the executive and the judiciary. First connected questions on UPSC CSE means. Another questions is like salient features of the Representation Act of Representation of People's Act. Right? Function of democratic institution. Functioning of democratic institution. A mechanism, law, institutions, body constitutional of constitute the conduct of elections. Right? तो ये सब चीजें आपके सिविल सर्विसेज मींस के GS2 पेपर से डायरेक्टली कनेक्ट करती है टॉपिक, इसलिए इंपॉर्टेंट है. रोल ऑफ इलेक्शंस कमीशन, सिटीजन्स राइट अंडर आर्टिकल 19. अब जैसे एक क्वेश्चन था कहीं ना कहीं डायरेक्ट लिंकेजेस दिख रहा था ये 2025 की मींस में. What is the right to vote may be a statutory right, but the act of voting expression freedoms of under article 19(1) ऐसा रिलेटेड पूरा एक क्वेश्चन था. ठीक है. अच्छा, let's discuss if there is a question regarding the right to vote. Acha, right a question. To right to vote is maybe a state right. Right to vote maybe a statutory right. Right question. ठीक है. Maybe a statutory right, but the act of voting is an expression of freedom under 19 article. ठीक है, लिख लो. Act of voting is an expression of freedom. आर्टिकल 19 क्लास ए इन दैट. ठीक है. अब एग्जामिन द स्टेटमेंट इन द कंटेक्स्ट ऑफ तो examine section 53 clause 2 of clause 2 of the representation of a people's act. So this is examine. This is the means question. Now, how do you write on this? What is the approach of this answer? Can anyone tell me? Can anyone tell me about this thing? What is the introduction? Intro, body, conclusion. First of all, what is intro in that? We are asking about section 53, the context of section 53. So first of all, define section 53 in that. Define section 53 clause 2. Okay. Definition of define section 53 of clause 2, automatic declaration of unopposed candidate. Briefly introduce the ongoing Supreme Court case also, like definition in 2 lines, and next 2 lines connect with Supreme Court case. ठीक है, समझ में आया? Next, what is the body in that? सबसे पहला explain right to vote versus freedom of voting, as we already discussed. Right to vote and freedom of voting. ठीक है. Discuss the petitioner's argument or denial of notice, why it is. Discuss central's argument, role of, in a brief way. Okay. Mention PUCL case, role of election commission, and administrative practicalities. Right. So all these things are discussed under this questions. Mention cases, पहली चीज. Discussion of positive and negatives part, nota, सब चीज आएगी इसमें. Okay. Next thing is, what is the conclusion in this question? How we conclude this thing? This is a executive and judiciary's related question. So we have to emphasize on the balancing democratic expression with electoral efficiency. Balancing democratic expressions with electoral efficiency. Suggest legislative review of RPA. Cautionary, right? The conclusion should be cautionary in the scenarios. समझ में आया? ये सब इसमें आएगा. The distinction between the stated right to vote and the constitutional freedom of voting highlights the evolving nature of electoral democracy in India. Discuss the reference of unconstitutional elections and the nota push option 15 marker question for this. Okay. Acha, let connect the way forward for this. What are the way forward, the positive point in that? First of all, legislative review. As we gave in conclusion, the legislative review consider amending Representation Act 1952 include notice uncontested election if required. This is the main thing which we have to do. Now, another thing is voter awareness. Educate citizens about the distinction between statutory rights to vote and freedom of voting. As we already uh, discuss this voter awareness, educate them. Now, the judicial guidance. Await Supreme Court clarity on the balancing electoral pragmatism and freedom of expression in this case, right? Because we also want the Supreme Court's view on this scenario or this loopholes. Another is electoral reform. Explore mechanism to allow meaningful voting expressions even in uncontested elections. Okay. Now the policy formalizations. Consider law that balance electoral efficiency with citizen choice. Another thing, democratic strengthening. Ensure reforms awareness campaign enhance participations without disrupting governance. Okay, understood all the way forwards. Now, what is the conclusion in this part? The ongoing debate in the Supreme Court highlights the subtle tension between the statutory voting rights and the constitutional freedom of expression voting political choice. While NOTA allows voters to voice dissent, uncontested elections present a particular limitation. The case underlined the evolving nature of electoral democracy in India and the need to balance citizens' expression with electoral efficiency. As we already told about these things कि क्या क्या चीजें connect कर सकते हो आप directly. अब means कि other means teams which directly connected to this topic is how to relate section 53 in that, like electoral reform in India. The last thing is highlights the need of empower voters even in uncontested seats. Second is judicial activism versus legislative supremacy. In that, Supreme Court's interpretations versus Parliament's law-making authority. Directly connections होंगे इस चीज में, है ना? Another important thing is what? Democratic accountability. What is the democratic accountability in that? Ensure no citizen is denial voice in democracy. समझे? Another is role of elections commission. What is the role of election commission in this? Election commission as neutral arbiter balancing law and democracy. So this is the main theme, different themes where UPSC asks question. in prelims also, in mains also. So we have to focus or directly connect these topics with the other others suggested some topics. Like we can see in governance or ethics also, we can connect this topic directly in a question of fairness, legitimacy, citizen participations, right? So PYQs also link with the PYQs, where we see that in 2020 GS2 there is a question on representation of a People's Act 1951. There's a direct question on that. Into 2017, in 2013. So this is Election Commission, RPA Act. So this is a very, very favorite topics of civil services, UPSCs. They were asked directly on these topics. As a linkages, directly as a democracy is not merely about voting. It is about the right to refuse. है ना? Reforms में है, rights है, democracy है, freedom of expressions find its highest meaning in a ballot box. पूछ सकता है ऐसे. Another electoral reforms are the lifeblood of maturing democracy. ठीक है? Ethical ये तो ऐसे हो गया. Ethics से कैसे connect करोगे? How we connect linkages of GS2, GS4 in this? What are the themes? Ethical governance, accountability, directly connection. Another thing is democratic values like participation, fairness, equality. Right versus responsibility of citizens. दोनों चीजें ना, एक right भी है, responsibilities भी है. Ethical dilemma in governance efficiency versus inclusivity. तो ये सारी चीजें कहीं ना कहीं कनेक्ट करेगी इन चीजों में और इस टॉपिक्स में currents based questions है, freedom of voting से directly, state fundamental, because there's ongoing election in Bihar also. So very hot topic. Okay. So, and what are the agencies included? Agencies, I think I lost I don't explain the agencies related to that. है ना? एक law commissions, 255th report of law commission called for reform in RPA for fair elections. Second ARC 2008 stress ethical and participatory elections. है ना? एक है वो था Venkatachalya Commission 2002 suggests the review of electoral law to strengthen democracy. So all these are directly connected to your prelims, your mains, GS2, GS3, essay, current affairs regulations. ये सारी चीजें यहाँ से कनेक्ट होगी. समझ में आया? So now let's solve the prelims question on this topic. Which of the following statement is correct regarding uncontested election in India? Section 53 clause 2 of representation allow candidate to be declared elected without a poll. Nota is considered a candidate under Section 79B of Representation Act. Uncontested elections are extremely rare in India's electoral history. So what is 1 and 2? There is 2 and 3. 1 and 3 is right because second nota is not considered under Section 59 clause B A. So third is the right answer, and we have already spoke about this mains question. Okay, so that's all from today's current affairs classes. Thank you and have a nice day and be safe because there is lots of pollution in Delhi NCR. So be safe, be healthy and do your preparation very well. Okay, best of luck, students. Thank you so much. Jai Hind.